Daf is
Yeah.
Metzia Daf Lamed Gimel. So we're holding Lamed Beis Lamed Beis by Lema Messiah Lema Messiah Lay. Okay, so let's just hi Sheldon. We just began. Okay, just dealing with the Torah. The Torah tells us that if you see your donkey of your enemy roivates crouching tachas masoi under its load, v'chadalto me'azev loin, you're going to hold yourself back from helping him. You know, it's your enemy. Still, you have to help him. Oziv taziv imoy, you have to help. You have to help your enemy unload the donkey, so the donkey should be able to stand up. Because okay, so that's one pasuk. Now, what the Gemara is dealing with is what is the reason why the Torah says you have to help the donkey? Is it because of Gemilas Chesed? You have to do your friend a favor. He can't unload the donkey by himself, or is it also because the animal's in pain? And if the animal's in pain, Tsar Balachayim is Daraisa. In our Torah, we find that the Torah is very concerned that you have to be always concerned about Tsar Balachayim. So we'll see, but that's the discussion in the Gemara. Then there's a pasuk that says, Here, the other pasuk seems to be talking about that if you see the donkey of your brother and the ox, and there's loads on the floor, basically it's not loaded up. Whatever load fell off, so there's nothing on the back of the donkey, and you can ignore it. You have to help him reload his donkey. That's called Te'ina, and the top of the pasuk is called Prika. Let's go to the Gemara. So we're discussing, is Tsar Balachayim Daraisa? Remember, Tsar Balachayim, causing an animal suffering, or do you have to intervene when an animal is suffering? Is that a mitzvah min Torah? Lema Messiah.
Yeah.
Okay. What does it say?
Yeah.
If it's a goyish animal that's crouching with an overloaded back, you have to be busy with it, just like an animal of a Jew. So there you have it. If you say that Tsar Balachayim is min Torah, you have to be concerned about the pain of an animal. Mishum, then it doesn't matter who owns the animal. Mishum then you have to be busy with it as if it was a Jewish animal. But if you say Tsar Balachayim lav daraisa, but if you hold Tsar Balachayim is not min Torah, it's only Drabanan made it up. So then, amay metapel behem k'behem Yisrael. Why would you have to be concerned about a goyish behemoth like a Jewish behemoth? Rabbanan only make takanas only for Jews. So if it's a Jewish behemoth, then you have to be busy with it. But if it's a goyish behemoth, you should not have to be busy with it. And the fact that it says that you have to be busy with a goyish behemoth is because the goyish behemoth is breaking its back, and therefore Tsar Balachayim is deraisa, and you have to do something about it. That's the Gemara's question. Answers the Gemara, no. Hasam, really, Tsar Balachayim is Rabbanan. But midrabanan, even a goyish behemoth you have to be busy with. Mishum Eva, the goy is going to be angry, and it causes animosity to goyim when they see that you're a good Samaritan and you're not helping a goy. Achinami mistabra, but this is very logical. Because the brisa continues. If on the back of the animal was avodah zara wine, okay, ein zakakla, you don't have to be busy with the animal because he's carrying stuff for an avodah zara, so you could ignore the animal. So again, so must be bishlam lav darais. If you say Tsar Balachayim is not min Torah, bishum hachi ein zakakla. That's the reason why if it's carrying avodah zara on its back, you don't have to be busy with it. But in the Yamet Daraisa, if you say that being busy with an animal that's in pain is a mitzvah min Torah, so who cares if it's on the back of the animal as yayin nesach? Amai ein zakallah. Why shouldn't I be concerned about the animal? Tsar Balachayim is Daraisa. So therefore, it must be Tsar Balachayim is not min Torah. So the Gemara said, no, hachi kama. This is what the Brisa said. Really, Tsar Balachayim is Daraisa. And here we're not talking about Tsar Balachayim. Here we're talking about loading the animal for the first time with yayin nesach. So the animal's not in pain. You're just loading the animal. There, if the guy is asking you to help him carry yayin nesach on the back of the animal, to put it on the back of the animal, ein zakaklah. So it's not dealing at all with Tsar Balachayim. Tashma coming here. Behemes goyim asoy Yisrael v'chadalta. Let's say the guy owns the animal and the load belongs to the Jew. Okay, the guy owns the animal and the load belongs to the Jew. V'chadalta. and you're not going to help the chadalta, you're not going to help the chadalta, means that you don't have to help the animal. Oh, wait a second. Because the animal belongs to a guy. Why should you not help out the animal just because the animal belongs to a guy? Why would you don't have to help the animal because it's not a Jewish animal, but it's Tzar Balachayim. Tzar Balachayim, if you hold as Minat Torah, it shouldn't matter who owns the animal. And says the Gemara again, L'olam Tzar Balachayim Daraisa. The really Tzar Balachayim is Daraisa. Hasam over there, Beti'ina. The question is not that the goy's animal had the load of Yisrael on its back, and therefore it's crouching. No, the animal is fine, doing fine with nothing on its back, but the load, it's supposed to carry the load belonging to a Jew. So there you don't have to help it out. You don't have to help it out because you're helping a goy. There's no mitzvah gemilas chesed to the goy. If that's the case, let us say the end of the brisa. Behemes Yisrael masoy goy. The opposite. The animal belongs to a Jew, and the load belongs to a goy. Ozav tazav, you have to help out. The b'ti'ina, if it's loading up, amai ozav tazav. Why should I have to help out if the load belongs to goy? I'm helping a goy. Why should I have to mitzvah min Torah to help a goy? Answers the Gemara, Mishum Tzara di Yisrael, because the animal belongs to a Jew. And the Jew is going to lose out money if he's not going to be able to carry the goyish load on his animal. So then the Gemara says, even in the first case, where the load belongs to the Jew and the animal belongs to a guy, I should be required to help out because, albeit that it's the guy's animal, but the Jew is going to lose out because he's not going to be able to put his load on the goyish animal. And why do we say you don't have to help out in that case? Answers the Gemara, Reisha b'chama goy, Sefer b'chama Yisrael. Really, there's the load belongs to a Jew, but the Jew is not there. So who's responsible to bring the load? The owner of the animal. And the owner of the animal is a goy, and he's leading the animal. And therefore, you're helping a goy, there's no mitzvah. But if the owner of the animal is Yisrael, like the end of the Mishnah, the Brisa, then even though the goy is the load, but you're helping a Jew, then it's part of the mitzvah. My pesakta, how do you know that? That the leader of the animal is Jew and the goy is not there. And in the first case, the goy is there and the leader and the Yisrael is not there. Stama de milsa. Really, that's the way it is. Inish basa chamri azam. Really, a person goes where his animal is. So really, the one that's present in each situation is the owner of the animal. The owner of the load is not present. So basically, you said that the Bryce is talking about te'ina, loading an animal. But that's not true. But the Brisa brings psukim of chadalta, ozav tazav. Those psukim, as I pointed out before, are said by Parika, unloading an animal. So there must be, the Brisa is also dealing with Tzar Balei. And yet the Brisa says if you're dealing with a goy, you don't have to help out. So it must be Tzar Balei is not min Torah. Amalei, so he conceded. Rava conceded. Hamani Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Tzar Balei lav daraisa. Yes, there is an opinion, a Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that holds Tzar Balei is not min Torah. It's not a mitzvah min Torah to help out an animal. Tashma, come in here. Oyev nifrek v'soyni litoin. You have a friend, a guy you like, and you can help him unload his animal. Okay, so his animal's in pain, and you can help him unload the animal. V'soyne, and your enemy litoin, you can help him load his animal. Who should you do first? You have a choice, two people, your enemy or your friend. So mitzvah b'soyne, the mitzvah is to help your enemy, even though it's loading up his animal, to overcome your yetzer hara, that you shouldn't have really enemies, you shouldn't hate anybody. But if you hold, now why is that the case? Your friend has an animal that's in tsar. If you learn that Tzar Balei is min Torah, so why should I pick the enemy to help him load his animal? I should pick the friend to unload his animal because his animal is in pain. It's much better. Answers the Gemara, to overcome your hate for somebody else, it's better to help your enemy than to help your friend. Even though by not helping your friend, there's going to be Tzar Balei. If you hold Tzar Balei is min Torah, still it's better to help your enemy. Soine she'amru, who is a soine? Soine Yisrael, v'lo soine goy. It's the enemy that's another Jew and not a goy. Now, And therefore, now the East, it's so they're both Jews. If if we're talking about a soine to to uh, to help, the Gemara thought that it says look at this. The Torah tells you if you see a donkey of your enemy, if you see a donkey of your enemy, roivetz tachas masoi, you have to help him, right? If it's crouching, if it's in pain. So the Brisa says only if it's a Jewish enemy, you have to help the animal that's in pain. But if it's a goyish animal that's in pain, you don't have to help out. So the Gemara's question is, if you hold tzar balachayim's daraisa, mali soine yisrael, mali soine goy. Who cares if it's a goyish animal or a Yiddish animal? It's tzar balachayim. It's tzar balachayim. You have to help out. And says the Gemara, mi savrit asoin dekrakoi. Who told you this Brisa is trying to interpret the word soine that's written in the Chumash? Asoin masnisen koi. It's going on this soine that's written in this Mishnah, soine litain. And that enemy is not talking about tzar balachayim. It's loading an animal that's your enemy. Tashma, come here. We go to the roivetz v'loy raftzam, roivetz v'loy oimetz tachas masori v'loy mefarek, tachas masori sheyochel lamed boy. That the animal, you don't always have to help an animal that's crouching and in pain. If it's an animal that always likes to crouch, it has a habit of crouching, or if it's standing up but a little wobbly, or if it's under its load, but not that you don't have to. If it doesn't have a load on it, then you don't have to help it out. We're going to see that. But tachas masoi sheyochel lamed boy. Listen, if the animal is with a load that's too much for the animal, that nobody should have put it on the animal in the first place, you don't have to help out. If the guy puts 2,000 pounds on an animal, and you see the animal's plotzed on the floor, you don't have to help out. That's it. It's the owner that is at fault over here. But if you hold sar balachayim daraisa, mali roivitz, mali raftzim, mali oimed. What do I care of all these cases where the animal likes to crouch or is standing? As long as you see an animal in pain, it doesn't matter who's at fault or if the animal's in a habit of being sensitive and crouching all the time. You have to be concerned about the tzar balachayim. And says the Gemara, yes, the author of this Brisa, Hamani Rabbi Yossi Aglili. The author of the Brisa is Rabbi Yossi Aglili. The Amat Tzar Balachayim D'Rabbanan. He holds Tzar Balachayim is only mitzvah midrabbanan. You don't have to. Midraisa, there is no mitzvah to help out an animal in pain. Ochanami Mistavrab. The Ketani Tachas Masoy Shiach Lamebay. Man Shama Delis Lehai Svar Rabbi Yossi Aglili Shmamina. It must be from the end of the Brisa that says that if the owner of the animal overloaded the animal, you don't have to help out. That proves that the author of the Brisa is Rabbi Yossi Aglili. And once you're saying the author of the Brisa is Rabbi Yossi Aglili, well, Rabbi Yossi Aglili is of the opinion that what? You never have to help out if Tzar Balachayim is only the Rabbanim. Says the Gemara, Mi Matzos Michael Law Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Can you say that that Brisa goes according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili? But that end of the Brisa says tachas masoi, that if the animal has a load on its back, you don't have to help an animal that does not have a load on its back. What do you mean? My loy mefarek. What does it mean? You don't have to help an animal that doesn't have a load on its back. That it doesn't have a load on its back, but the owner needs help putting a load on its back. Well, of course, there's a mitzvah to help. You have to help your friend load the animal. El pshita, what it means to say, loy mefarek bechinam, ela basachar. That means you don't, if it's not carrying a load, but the owner wants to load the animal, you don't have to do it for free. You could actually charge. As we learned yesterday, that the difference between unloading an animal and loading an animal, unloading an animal, you're not allowed to charge. The animal's in pain, you don't charge for that. But loading an animal, according to the opinion of Rabbanan, the guy could say, I'm not helping you load your animal unless you pay me a little bit. Man shamat leidis lehaisvara. Who is the author of that holds to that opinion? Rabbanan. So it must be the author of the Brisa Rabbanan and not Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Since the end of the Brisa, since part of the Brisa seems to be going according to Rabbanan and not Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Answers the Gemara, yes, you could go like both. Loilam Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Really, it's Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Uvetina, when it comes to loading an animal, this author of the Brisa, Savalak Rabbanan, holds like the Rabbanan that you could charge for loading an animal. Okay, now we're going to learn a very, very important din. When you see your friend's animal that's crouching and overloading, and the Torah tells you have to help, how distance do you have to be from the animal to be obligated in this mitzvah? Let's say you have a binoculars and you can see 2 miles away. Does that mean you have to run to the animal and help out? So Torah Rabbanan, Kisira, Yachal Filim Merachim, even if you're far away, I might think you have to help out. Talmud Loy Mikisivka, you have to meet it. Ikisivka, Yachal Pigiya Mamash, it has to be right in front of you. Talmud Loy Mikisira. So if you look at the pasuk, it says Kisira, and it says Kisivka somewhere else. So you have to see it. The what's how close is it that it's you can see it, but it's not so far away. It's almost as if it's close up to you. If you divide a mile into 7.5 parts, 1/7.5, which is called a ris, that's how much the distance has to be between you and the animal, which forces the obligation on you to unload the animal. But if the animal is like, say, a mile away, you don't have to help out. Now, very important point. When you help unload an animal that's in pain, you have to help reload that animal. You can't just walk away. You have to reload the animal, and then you have to walk with the animal. You have to walk with the animal to make sure that you loaded it on correctly. So Tana, we learned in the Brisa, umadadi imoy ad parsa. When you reload the animal, you have to walk a parsa, which is even more than a meal. Since even though prika you don't take schar, and this is a loading for after a prika, still you're allowed to take payment for that because now you're wasting your time. You loaded the animal, which is part of the mitzvah, and now you have to walk with the animal to make sure it doesn't happen again. So, says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, new Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Aveidasai, Aveidus Aviv, Aveidasai Kodemis. Aveidasai, Aveidus Rabbi, Shaloi Kodem. If you lost an object and you could only busy yourself finding your object, your lost object, or your father's lost object, even if your father lost a more expensive object and you lost something not so expensive, you don't have to look out for your father. You can take care of yourself first. Even if it's your Aveda and your rabbi's Aveda, you take care of yourself first. Shaloi Kaidim. That's what we're going to learn. Even though what you lost is of small value compared to what your rabbi lost, you take care of finding your lost item before you start busying yourself with your rabbis. Let's say you have a time. Avedis of Avedis Rabbi. You have your father lost an object and your rabbi lost an object. Shall Rabbi Kademis. Your rabbi comes first. You have to help your rabbi before you help your father. Why? Your father brought you to this world, which of course you owe hakaras hatov. The rabbi taught you Torah, so therefore he brings you to the next world, which has more of a kiyum, which you're going to be around more in the next world than in this world, I hope. And therefore you have to show deference to your rabbi more than your father. If your father is just as smart, you probably learned from your father as much as you learned from your rabbi. Then your father takes precedence. If your rabbi and your father were carrying a load, you help your rabbi first, and then you help your father. If your father and your rabbi were in jail, you first redeem your rabbi, and then you redeem your father. But if your father is somewhat of a Talmud Chacham, then then you redeem your father, and then you could be your rabbi. So how do we know that when your father lost something or your rabbi lost something and you lost something, you should be busy yourself finding your lost object before you help your father or your rabbi? How do you know that? How do you know that you're supposed to take care of yourself first, then take care of, then be, goymel chesed to other people? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Efes, ki yoyel b'chav evyon. Fascinating pasuk. What the pasuk is saying, make sure you don't become impoverished. If you're too busy in helping others before you help yourself, then you're going to become impoverished. Shalcha koydem shel kol adam. You have to take care of yourself first before you take care of anybody else. V'amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, don't always, but he caveated it. He said that don't always think about yourself. If you're always concerned about your own money and you don't put out, let's say, for somebody else, you're always to the penny, then you're going to become poor because you're thinking, if you're constantly thinking, I don't want to lose 2 cents over here, so then you'll end up poor. So you have to have a positive, wide mindset. But what the general rule is that you take your finances take precedence before somebody else's. It's not any Rebbe that you takes precedence over your father. Rabbi Shilim de Chachma, Rabbi Shilim de Mikra Mishnah. According to Rameir, it's your rabbi that teaches you Gemara, not that the rabbi that taught you Chumash or Mishnayos. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda is not a little bit different. He says, it doesn't matter what your rabbi taught you. If that's all you know, and most of your knowledge comes from that rabbi, that is your rabbi. So if he happened to have taught you only Chumash, and that's most of your knowledge, and you don't know Gemara, that's your rabbi, and he takes precedence over your father. Rabbi Yossi, wow. Even if you didn't learn from this person only one Mishnah, that is your rabbi. So it's a real stretch of a machlekes between Rameir, Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi. Amar Rava says, "Kegon Rav Schayra, the Asbron Zuham Alistram. Rav Schayra, I consider Rav Schayra my rabbi, and he taught me one thing in Mishnayos Kalim. So Rava said Rav Schayra is my rabbi. Shmuel Karimane Allah Humad Raman the Asbrei Echad Yer El Amas Hashachi Echad Poisech Kevan. The Gemara says that Shmuel ripped Kriya when one of the rabbis died. And Shmuel only learned one Mishnah in Talmud from that rabbi. So that's an extreme piety that the Rava had or Shmuel had, but they paskin like Rabbi Yossi that even if you only learned one Mishnah from that person, that's your rabbi. Ula said, now, but even though Talmidei Chacham and Bava that learn in the Beis Medrash, they're always learning from each other. If you learn in Beis Medrash, of course, you're near each other, and I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. And when somebody dies in the Beis Medrash, they rip Kriya one on the other because they always learned from each other. But in the Inyan Aveda, according Ula says, but the real halacha is that only if it's your rabbi muvak, your only rabbi, if it's your main rabbi, that's the one that takes precedences over your father. It's not anybody that you learn from. Rav Chizda asked the question from Rav Huna. Talmud v'tzarech rabbi. Let's say you have a rabbi mufhak, right? Your expert rabbi, but that Talmud, the rabbi doesn't know everything, so he needs the Talmud as well. So they need each other. So who takes precedence? Amalei. So Rav Huna said, Chizda lo at. Rav Huna took it as a comment that Rav Chizda is saying, you're my rabbi, Rav Huna, but you, Rav Huna, need me. So Rav Huna said, I don't really need you. Chizda, I don't need you. You need me for another 40 years. They got into a little fight, Rav Chizda and Rav Huna, by misunderstanding and a miscommunication between them, because Rav Huna thought Rav Chizda is saying that Rav Huna needs Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda was saying, I'm so smart, I really don't need you. I know everything. So anyway, this miscommunication, Yosef Rav Chizda abor tanisin mishum necholish daite Rav Huna, Yosef Rav Huna abor tanisin mishum nechashtu Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda fasted for 40 days because he thought Rav Huna got insulted, and Rav Huna fasted 40 days because he accused Rav Chizda. Interesting story. Itma Rav Chizda bar Yosef and Yechon halacha Rabbi Yehuda, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's your rabbi that teaches you most of your chachma, doesn't matter what. Rav Acha bar Huna Rav Shesha halacha Rabbi Yossi, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. So Rav Shesha said the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Even if you learn only one thing from that person, he takes precedences over your father. Says the Gemara, Mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, did Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha Stam Mishnah, Utanan Rabbi Shalim de Chachma. In our Stam Mishnah, in a regular Mishnah, it says that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Only your rabbi that taught you Gemara, you have to it takes precedences over your father. Not like Rabbi Yehuda, the rabbi that taught you Chumash. So the Gemara says, "My chachma, reiv chachmas." You could squeeze it into that Mishnah. That Mishnah doesn't mean if he taught you Gemara. It means you learned most of your knowledge from him, but it could be you're learning Chumash from him. So it could be that Stam Mishnah also paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, "Oiskim ba mikra mida ve'ena mida." If you only learn Chumash, that's fine, but not great. But Mishnah, if you learn Mishnayos, mida v'noit l'no sachar. It's a good thing, and you get reward for it. Talmud, if you learned Gemara, ein lecha mida gedolim zu. Talmud is great because you get everything in there and you get the understanding of what you're learning. But nevertheless, have a rotz lamishna yosim in Talmud. You should try to run to Mishnayos more than learning, more than Gemara. Try to learn Mishnayos more than Gemara. So the Gemara says, "Hagufa gasha." Your implications are contradicting itself. Amrit, you first said, "But Talmud ein lecha mida gedolim zu." The best thing is to learn Gemara. Right? V'hada amrit, then you say, Lo'ilam have a ratz l'mishnah, yosim and Talmud. And then you're telling people, learn Mishnayos more than Gemara. Which is it, Mishnayos or Gemara? Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, we go to Amud Beis, B'mei Rebbe Nishnas Mishnah Zu. In the time of Rebbe, people got lax in learning Mishnayos because Gemara was discovered, I guess, and people were starting to be busy themselves in Gemara. So Rebbe said, you gotta stick back to Mishnayos because Mishnayos gives you a wide broadness to what you need to learn. Because if you're just learning Gemara, you're just very narrow in your understanding. Shavakuli alma masnisim v'asabasa Talmud, because in those days people will learn or stop learning Mishnayos, then they were learning more Gemara. Hadadarish lo, then so they brought out ula'ilam have a ratz l'mishnah yashim etam. A person should learn Mishnayos more than Gemara, to bring back the Mishnayos. And we see that today also. The people there's a comeback with Mishnayos. Let's do another minute and then we'll end the parak. My darish, kedarish Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. How do you know Gemara is a very good thing? My diksiv hagei la'ami pishon lebeis Yaakov chatoisam hagei la'ami pishon elu tamid chachamim shegoges nasas lekizdoinis. If you're a Talmud Chacham, any mistake that you did, it could be considered as if you did it on purpose, because you're supposed to know the reasons behind the halachas, so you don't make the mistakes. Because if you know the reason behind something, you're going to be able to limit a halacha that applies in one situation, and you're not going to apply it automatically in another situation. Beis Yaakov chatoisim, God considers Beis Yaakov sins, mistakes, elu amarat shesdoinis naslem kishtogagos, that things that are done on purpose are considered as if they were done by mistake. Because an amaretz, you can't expect more from an amaretz. He tries, but he didn't go to yeshiva. Rabbi Yehuda have a zar b'Talmud. Try to understand the reasoning behind of what you're learning. Sheshigig Talmud oilazodin, because you make that mistake, God considers it as if you did it on purpose. You really have to delve deeper. Just don't read the laws and then you come up with your own comparisons. You really have to learn Gemara. Darish Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, Madiksim Madishit Shmim Dvar Hashem Achreidim El Dvarai El Tamid Chachamim. Amra Chachechem Eli Bal Mikra, Seinechem Eli Bal Mishnah, Benadechem Eli Am Haaretz. All these people are enemies against Gemara people, because Gemara people are superior than just somebody who learns Chumash or somebody who learns Mishnayos or somebody who's an Am Haaretz. But Shemet Time Apostle Sivim Batal Sekuyim. Maybe because they're enemies with each other, they will not enjoy the enjoyment of somebody that's the ultimate joy of the person that's going to have the ultimate enjoyment of the person who learns Gemara. It's a nice way to end. Goyim should be embarrassed. The Jews should always remain happy. Metzia. So we just, Be'ez Hashem, finished the second parak of Metzia. We'll start him after tomorrow.